Hello, thanks for joining us. We're here today with Paula Kensington, who has over 30 years' experience as a CFO and runs her own consulting group, PK Advisory, where she helps CFOs and CEOs grapple with the day-to-day complexities involved in balancing profitability and purpose. We're going to talk about reimagining the future in a planet positive way. Paula, we've talked a lot in this series about making changes now to change the future. Tell us about your vision for the future if we start to put changes in place.
Yeah, I think if we start to put changes in place, I did a bit of research for my green papers, and I think there's something like $334 million businesses in the world. And if all of those businesses could just do something small in terms of the impact, think about the impact that they're having in the world, we could potentially buy ourselves another 300 years of life as we know it in this planet. And people talk about global warming and the climate crisis, and and how the survival of the planet. The planet will survive. That's not the issue. It's whether the planet survives in a way that the humans can actually survive on the planet is the challenge. So if we can all make a small difference, I feel like we can buy ourselves another 300 or 400 years in the way that we think, in this beautiful planet that we have, and the way that we do business. So how do I imagine the future? So I think I imagine a future where businesses are actually in service to each other. And that's how business used to be back in probably, the 30s or the 40s or the 50s. It was like business was in service of others and solving challenges of the world. And I think now businesses seem to be in business sometimes making problems for the world. So I think how I see the future is that business actually really has thought about its impact, its footprint, its place in society and the environment and in the economy, and having a place where we actually want to collaborate with each other and sort of do a better business with each other. It kind of feels like utopia, but also everyone succeeds. People have a purpose. Why is it that I talk to so many people and hear so many employees say that they can't wait for the weekend? Well, what? Because they hate going to work, they hate their job. Wouldn't it be awesome if people actually felt like it was the weekend every day because they loved what they were doing? And if they loved what they were doing, it's because business is doing the right thing. I think often people don't like going to work because it might be against their values, or they just feel like it's a waste of time. There's something for everyone. And if we could actually find companies that we want to work with because they're doing the right thing for, whatever it might be, all the stakeholders, the planet, nature, individuals, communities, that just feels like a better world, right? Is that just me thinking with, rose-colored glasses on?
I think you're absolutely right. And it's important to have meaning, isn't it? It's about having meaning. And not being meaningless, isn't it? Meaningful work. And I guess, and I know we've talked about this before, but from your roundtables with CFOs, a lot of them are saying they want to, put positive changes in place, but they're feeling this conflict between that and their profitability goals that they have to meet. What would you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about the short-termism of business, of shareholders, of governments. Everyone's so worried about the next quarter or the next 12 months or, potentially in governments, the next 3 years. It's all ego-driven, right? People just worry about that because it has an impact on me. I want to be leading this government. I want to be leading this business. I want success. I want, $1 million salary or whatever it might be. I want all my returns. It's all focused around short-termism and ego. And so I think, yes, we need to be profitable. There's no point being in business without being able to give something. But it doesn't have to be what's enough? I mean, I think that's the challenge sometimes. What is enough? What is enough money, and what is enough resources that we're taking, and what is enough that we're giving? So how do CFOs keep all of their investors happy, all of their stakeholders happy. I think it's having honest conversations about what is possible. I've worked in so many businesses where, it's been last year's results plus 10% or plus 20%, that endless growth engine that we seem to be on. Let's have some honest conversations. What does success look like? And not just about revenue growth and profit growth. Yes, okay, we need to be profitable, but what does that look like? And what are we growing? Not just about selling more or doing more. Like, what if we grew the happiness of the communities in which we served? What if we grew people's people's ability to afford affordable housing and have a roof over their head, like basic human needs? Like, why don't we think that that's successful? And why do we think that churning out an extra 20% margin on the bottom line is the right answer? I don't know. It all feels wrong to me.
Yes, and I guess it's this sense of it being an old-fashioned way of doing business. Do you think younger people have a different vision? Are they young people that are coming into business now? Are they seeing things differently?
Yeah, I think so. I think they definitely are some of the shining lights in our business, because they are going to be the people that having to live in a world that's not as habitable as the world that we lived in and our parents lived in. And it's this new generation potentially that are entering the workforce, and their children that are going to be suffering with the planet and the climate changes that we've and our ancestors have created. So I think there is definitely different energy from the younger generation about this isn't good enough, and they're not potentially tainted with, well, that's how we always did business kind of mentality. They've got this disruptive why not attitude where let's try anything to see whether it works or not. So that, I think they have a different energy and a different expectation, and that can really help us to disrupt ourselves when we need to.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so if you're wanting to make some changes, and and maybe you're a CFO and you've got some new recruits and they're young and they've got all these fantastic ideas, and you're excited, you feel that you really want to go in this direction, and it's important. Where do you start? What tools are available?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different places to start. I mean, I would actually think about innovation. I would look to what can we do that's different to what we've always done? Like, what technology can we use to disrupt ourselves, and what innovation can we create? So I would say the first thing to do is maybe even think about creating an innovation lab and getting people within our business who care, because some people care about this more than others, that's fair to say. Get people that care about the future and being sustainable to lead up some of those innovation labs, and think about what is it that we've always done that maybe we can do differently, and how do we think about different channels and different other industries that might be not initially obvious, that they've solved problems that maybe in a different way to what we might be solving problems. So I think getting teams together that are really excited about disruption, and how do we hack our own business, that to me is a really good start. And I've talked about this in different places, but if we continue to invest in our business using our capital and our resources in business as usual, like, we're going to go out of business, whether that's 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. If we keep doing more of the same, we are definitely not going to have a business in that time frame. So sure, we need to invest maybe 50% of our resources on continuing, but maybe 50% on disrupting. And how do we make that business model work? I think that's the target for the CFO and the business leaders.
Yeah, so it's thinking outside the box and doing things differently, and deciding that you're going to do things differently. And maybe you don't have all the answers.
I think that's a definite. I think you can be guaranteed of two things in life: that change is a constant, and that we won't have the answers. And I think that is something that the CFO has to get comfortable with, because we, as in our DNA and all of our education, we've learnt to follow the bouncing ball. We know that you do this, you get that. And so how do you change that mindset into a mindset that says, you know what, I don't actually even know the answer, and that's okay, and we're going to find the answer. And I think that is a real mindset shift for a CFO, for sure.
And so we've talked about, looking at doing things differently and putting different values in place on the reason why we're doing business. How about reporting? How might, annual reporting look if we do it differently?
Yeah. Well, and I think that is, that is changing. That has been changing, and I think the new accounting standards that are coming in are mandating companies to think differently, but also to bring those documents together. So in the past, there's been a financial document, and then there's been the sustainability document. And it's actually about how do you bring them together so that they are embedded. It's not just one set of books for the auditors and the stakeholders, the shareholders, and one set of books for the other stakeholders that care about what is your business doing. We need to kind of bring them together so that in our business, they're actually embedded in our practice. They're not just some add-on that we do, to tick a box. So the reporting has changed over time, and for the better, and I think it will continue to do so.
Hey, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much, Paula. There's more conversations to come around this. If you're interested in wanting to make some planet positive changes for your business, then hop on to pkadvisory.com.au, where you can pick up lots of information and resources. Thanks, Paula.